Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a severe weather outbreak over the central United States, especially centered over states like Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, but we will be seeing those threats of storms reach all the way up into areas like Wisconsin, Minnesota, and also South Dakota. So we're going to be giving you what the Storm Prediction Center is currently saying about this severe weather outbreak, and also what some of the models are showing for this event. It looks like it'll be a fairly widespread event. We also do have the threat of some flooding around the Mississippi River Valley, so we'll be talking about all of that and more in today's video, so make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end. Here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like, and as you can see, it is actually quite active, especially over the western and central part of the country. We have some frost advisories in northwestern California, some winter weather advisories also scattered through parts of the Rockies and the higher elevations in the western United States. Some red flag warnings also up for the Central Plains and the Four Corners, and some more winter weather advisories up for northern Wisconsin and northeastern Minnesota, with a little area also in southern New Hampshire and southern Maine of some red flag warnings. Yesterday we had high temperature in Rio Grande Village, Texas, where they got to 102 degrees Fahrenheit. The low temperature was in Climax, Colorado, where they got down to 1 degree Fahrenheit. In Baxley, Georgia, they got 6.79 inches of rainfall yesterday, so really high rainfall was reported, especially over this area right here in southern Georgia, southern Alabama. All those areas saw some quite high rainfall numbers. Most of them were above 4 inches of reported rainfall, and the highest snowfall report was 3 miles north of Cook City, Montana, where they got 9 inches of reported snowfall in that area. Here's what the current Storm Prediction Center page looks like. You can see that we have a little area of marginal risk which goes all the way up for tomorrow into the northern plains, and also all the way down through the Great Plains into parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And in this area, generally in the yellow area, the slight risk, where we're dealing with the most risk of that severe weather. So in the southern plains especially is where we're expecting the most severe of the storms, although it doesn't look like this is going to be some sort of major outbreak. I really don't think it's going to be something of a huge significance compared to what we've already seen. So I think this is going to be probably a 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10 in terms of if you were to rate this on how severe it'll be. You'll have a couple severe storms here and there, but in terms of widespread severe weather, really doesn't look like that's going to be the case with this type of event. And here's the day 3 outlook, and you can see that for Wednesday we have a marginal risk which goes from Texas all the way up to Illinois and Indiana, and in that area that's where we're expecting the severe storms for Wednesday. That might even include a little slight risk area. Probably if they were to put one, it would be somewhere right in here, just based off what I'm seeing from the models today. Here's what the Weather Prediction Center is showing for tomorrow's risk of flash flooding. We have a 5 to 10% chance in this area from southeastern Kansas into eastern Oklahoma, northern Texas as well. And then here's for Wednesday, and you can see that we actually have a 10 to 20% chance of seeing some flash flooding in this yellow region, which covers much of the central United States, crosses over the Mississippi River into parts of Illinois and Indiana as well. So we have a couple concerns here, mainly in the form of damaging wind, heavy rain, and also flash flooding in some of these areas. So those are the main 3 concerns. A couple isolated tornadoes, definitely not out of the question, and also some small hail is also possible with this type of event. So here's what the NAM model is showing, and just to give you kind of a widespread, kind of a wide view of what we're expecting. Usually in this case, I would kind of zoom in on whatever particular area this is going to be taking place in, but because this is happening over such a large area, I do have to expand to the entire United States, so it might be a little bit hard to see exactly where these thunderstorms are being located. We have a little bit of rain and snow mixed back through the Rockies, but what you want to pay attention to are these 2 areas. This little area of moisture that's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, that's that warm, moist air that's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, and eventually will be moving into the plains. We have that cold, dry air which is sinking underneath the warmer air coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, and that is coming out of Canada with all that cold and dry air. Again, that's going to be going underneath that warm air, and that's how you're going to get those thunderstorms to really spawn up, especially over the southern plains right within this area. So And this will be by Tuesday morning according to the NAM 3KM model. And then eventually we'll go to some of the lower resolution models and give you kind of a further outlook on what we're expecting. This is by Tuesday early afternoon, and we're dealing with a lot of rainfall over parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, some of the surrounding areas, but really nothing of major significance, nothing that's going to be too severe. You can see a couple storms maybe in southern Minnesota or just in some of the general areas, so such as eastern South Dakota, northern Iowa, western Wisconsin as well, all in play for potentially a little bit of severe weather later on Tuesday. It doesn't really get too severe for the central and southern plains. You can see the area of moisture continuing to flood into the central United States. So areas like Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, and then even up through Wisconsin and Minnesota now getting in on some of that rainfall. You can see how that entire area of moisture is now up through the Great Lakes, and we're actually dealing with more storminess into northern Wisconsin and southern Minnesota. So again, this is not going to be some sort of huge event. It will be significant just based on how widespread it's going to be. On the back end of this, we do want to watch out for the potential for some more storms to pop up. I actually think that there's going to be more storms on Wednesday in the southern plains than there will be on Tuesday, because what I'm seeing based on especially the NAM model and some of the other high resolution models is not really too impressive in the southern plains, but it is actually a little bit more impressive for Wednesday in the southern plains, where you can see a couple of storms back through northern Texas and western Oklahoma. And it actually does form a pretty decent line in through that area. You can see that moving through central and eastern Oklahoma right there. And also don't forget about areas like northern Michigan, potentially a little bit of storminess and heavy rainfall at times. This is all being led by an upper level low, which is right back through here. And that's going to continue tracking to the north and to the east, and that's what's going to be bringing all of that rainfall and all the thunderstorms associated with it. You can see that by Wednesday night, we're still dealing with some storminess, and it's actually going to get rather intense and severe, likely by Thursday. So Wednesday night into Thursday, I think it does start to ramp up, especially for areas around the Mississippi River and that general region, where we are dealing with some bands of heavy rainfall at times through the central United States. Continuing this forward, moving down to the RGEM model, just because the NAM 3K model only goes out 60 hours. So to go further out, we have to downgrade to a lower resolution model. You can see those storms continuing through parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and even back through the Ohio Valley. We have a couple storms in and around Lake Erie. So we will be dealing with the storminess fairly far to the north. We actually have a ridge which is centered over parts of just off the Atlantic coast. So right off the southeast, that's where we're dealing with a ridge of high pressure. That's bringing in a lot of warm air, kind of like this. And with all that warm air, is going to bring very, very high temperatures. So we're dealing with temperatures that are going to get into the mid 80s as far north as the mid Atlantic, and even into the 90s into the southeast. So really warm air out ahead of this, and this is all just going to fuel the instability with this storm that is already in place. Then by Thursday morning, early in the morning, and we're dealing with some of those storms from Indiana and Illinois down through Missouri, Arkansas, and then into Texas and Oklahoma. That's where we're dealing with some of those more intense bands of rainfall. They might even issue a slighter enhanced risk maybe for Thursday or Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised, especially in the southern plains. That's where it looks like it's going to ramp up. I really don't think there's going to be too much for tomorrow. I'm not sure why they actually put up a slight risk, just based on what I've seen in the models. There isn't much that would signify that. That's just my opinion, and of course you would always want to divert to the experts, and that's what the Storm Prediction Center is consisted of. They're really trained at their job, so I would definitely trust them over me. But in my opinion, I don't see too much in the way of storms in the southern plains for tomorrow. I think it's going to be more Wednesday afternoon into Thursday when you're going to see the bulk of the storms in the southern plains. Continuing this forward, you can see that low pressure continuing to move up through the Great Lakes. We still have some storms down through Arkansas and Texas, and then one more frame here, and you can see that by Thursday, we still have a few dying out storms moving through Tennessee, Kentucky, and Arkansas as well, but really not too much. It will strengthen back up, and then we have another threat of storms along the eastern seaboard for Friday and Saturday, and we're going to talk about that more in a couple upcoming videos. But for now, really nothing too major with many of these storms. I think we will see, of course, one or two that do get severe. And of course, you want to stay up to date with the latest information, so I will have a couple more videos out on this particular storm. Here's the high temperatures that are expected, because these are going to be very, very nice. So if you're not in the storms, if you live within this southeastern cutout of the country, you're going to really be enjoying these temperatures. We're going to have temperatures that are going to be getting up into the mid 80s, even approaching 90 in some of these areas. So really, really warm temperatures over pretty much the entire eastern United States, from Maine to Florida, and from Florida to Texas. We have really, really warm temperatures all along the eastern United States. That's for Tuesday, or for tomorrow. And here's for Wednesday. It does get a little bit colder if you live back through the central and northern plains and the Great Lakes as well. It's still very pleasant. It's in the upper 70s at the chilliest, I guess you could say. But if you live along the East Coast and then down through the southeast and into parts of like Texas and Louisiana, we have temperatures that are getting all the way up and close to 90 in some of those darker red colors. That's 85 plus in the dark red, and then in the gray, that's 90 degrees plus. So we even have some 100 plus degree temperatures in southern Texas. So really, really warm conditions for Wednesday. And for Thursday, it does get chillier for many of these areas, but still you're dealing with high temperatures in the 70s. Really nothing to complain about. And then along the Gulf Coast and the southeast coast, still up into the mid 80s. So really no lack of warm air. That's not going to be the issue. The dew points also will not be the issue. Here's what we're expecting by Tuesday night or tomorrow night. And we have dew points that are expected to be upwards of 60 to 65. So really, really humid air, even up to 70 in some of these areas along the Gulf Coast. So it's going to be muggy if you live in the central part of the country. If you live in the eastern United States, it's not going to be as muggy. You're going to have dew points in the 50s. So definitely manageable and doable, especially with those warmer temperatures. It's really nice when you have warm and dry conditions. When it's really warm and humid, it's not really too pleasant to be outside in. And then here to be by Wednesday night, and you can see that pretty much the entire eastern United States has 60 plus degree dew points, even some 70 plus degree dew points through the southern plains. So really, really humid and warm air that we're going to have in place. So that's definitely not going to be the issue. Here's by Thursday early afternoon, and you can see that we have still some dew points that are above 65, even up to 70 or more in some of these areas. So really no lack in moisture or warm air with this system. I think what's going to be more lacking is going to be in terms of the amount of instability. Typically you would want to see in terms of some huge outbreak, 2,000 plus Cape. We're going to see some pockets of that, but really not in a widespread fashion that you would need to get some huge outbreak like what we were expecting maybe a couple days ago. So really it's going to be, I think, the amount of instability in the atmosphere that's going to be lacking. We also don't have a ton of wind shear. We have some, but we don't have a ton of it. So that will also hinder this. So this is by Tuesday morning. So tomorrow morning we're dealing with some high Cape values, very high for this time of year in the Great Lakes. You have a little bit of marginal Cape back through Texas and Oklahoma. And then here's by Wednesday morning. And you can see that we have some Cape values that are above 500, but nothing that you would say is kind of a large amount or anything that's going to cause some huge outbreak or anything like that. You would normally want 1,500 to 2,000 or more at least. You would want that amount. So you would want something around the 2,500 to 3,000 range to get a good big severe weather outbreak. Of course, you can manage with 500 to 1,000 Cape, but it's not going to get really the job done in this type of scenario. And if we look at Thursday even, I'll move the frame over, and you can see that by Thursday, we're still dealing with Cape values in some isolated areas. So there are a couple bands of high convective activity, but it's not in the widespread fashion that you would need. You have some elevated Cape numbers back through the Ohio Valley, and I'm not saying that we're not going to see any thunderstorms. I, of course, think there will be, but I'm not too convinced that it's going to be a huge outbreak like what I think it's being kind of advertised in some of these areas. We do definitely have the threat of of some thunderstorms. I think some thunder and lightning is possible, a couple tornadoes maybe, and some small to moderate sized hail in these areas. And again, I'm more heavy on what's going to happen for Thursday. I think Thursday is going to be the day when, if you're going to get severe weather, it's going to come Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Probably not too much on Tuesday, actually. And that's just generally my opinion. And then the CAPE amounts do fizzle out as we get to Thursday afternoon. Here's the amount of precipitable water, which is basically just showing you how much water is in the column of the atmosphere. And you can see that we have amounts over 1 inches of precipitable water. So that is a decent amount. And again, you could get the job done with that. We do even have a couple pockets of 1.5 inches plus. So really nothing to worry about in terms of the amount of moisture that's in the atmosphere. Very elevated amounts actually out ahead of this frontal system, where we have some amounts 2 to 3, even 4, or 2 to 2.5, maybe even 3 in some of these areas. So we do have some high amounts, especially over areas like eastern Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, and also into central Arkansas. Some of the areas also upstream of the Mississippi River. So really interesting type of setup here, where we have a ton of areas getting affected by this one singular storm, and it's something that we don't see too often. Normally we have more localized events where one particular area gets affected, but in this case we're dealing with storms from Texas to Wisconsin. So really an interesting type of system that's gonna be very widespread, and we're really still grappling with how intense and severe this will be. I'll definitely continue to review the models, and I'll have a better judgment as to what'll happen by tomorrow's video, and tomorrow's video will likely still be about this same storm. So make sure you are staying tuned to tomorrow's video. Make sure you have your notifications turned on and that you are subscribed so you never miss another video. And please leave a like on the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.